Good boom.
What's that?
Josh 147. Boat number 148. Number 153. Gotcha 153. Boat number 154. Gotcha 154. Boat number 154.
Good luck. Damn it, small. Come on, be cheaper. Be cheaper, man. Be cheaper.
Oh yeah. Jesus. Holy wow.
That is big.
Wow. It looked like a bass.
Yep. It's balling.
See?
Damn it, missed it. It's not cheaper. And he's swallowing it.
Yeah. Let me help you.
Thank you.
Yes. Hey, a lot. Hey, a lot of.
Damn it.
Little.
God damn it. Stay down, stay down. Woo. Shit.
He's too small. I got a call. I got a call. There's nothing like a oopsie in shallow water fishing a jerk bait and it turns and does not get it in its mouth, and you have to let a 10 1/4 go on tournament day. Yippee.
Oh, man. Please be keeper, man. Please be keeper.
I think he might go.
Yes.
For College Grove, Wisconsin. That's a 5 man song. Today, good away. Good work, man.
5 and 5.
I appreciate the phone call. Good man out there, no doubt about it. Sean Holder, Washington, D.C. co-leader. 5 bass limits. Sean Holder, all the way from home. 5 in the bag today. These 5 are going to weigh 9 pounds, 2 ounces, 30th place. Thank you, man. All right, next up, co-leader.